Good morning, everybody. Washing down a Cliff Bar here. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Happy Thursday. Happy Thursday. Great to see you. Whew, it's warm in here this morning. It is a nice mild day in New England today. Let's see what's going on. Oh, Gayla's writing from Missouri, the Ozarks. Good morning, Gayla. Good to see you. And Susan, Kansas. Unseasonably warm. There we go. I just ran over to the Gassies, whatever the gas station is across the street there, to get some of these Monster energy drinks that are coffee flavors, and they are remarkably good. The only reason I get them is because the coffee there is so bad, not the taste of it, but the choice of things to squirt into it. It's like you break your wrist trying to squirt the stuff into the coffee, so I'm resigned to just getting these iced coffees, but they're remarkably good. Good morning, Mom, in cloudy, mild Granby. Excited for coffee time gathering. Me too. I need some coffee. Carol, great to see you in Wisconsin. Welcome. And Cynthia, good morning. It's supposed to be 70s in the Ozarks. That is unseasonable, but a gift, right? A gift. We can call it a lot of things, global warming, but we'll say a gift for today anyway. Webnut. Denise, good to see you. You found the book online. Fantastic. Oh, I'm so glad. It is a wonderful Christmas present to yourself because it is a remarkable book. The book that we're looking at today that we're finishing up on is this Hooked Rugs of Agnes Vermuth, or Wearmouth. I always want to say Vermuth, but you know what I always have on the brain. It has just been a remarkable book. It is not at all my style of hooking in terms of what I like personally, but it is an amazing window into someone else's work philosophy, technical work, like their techniques. And the rugs are really beautiful, really beautiful. It's such a good find, isn't it? It's one of these books that you could easily go a whole lifetime loving rug hooking and missing because it's a small one and it's a small press and it's a wonderful thing to find it because it is super finite. Carol says, you have my Van Gogh chair finished. Oh, for quite a while. Finally sent. Okay, fantastic. I can't wait to see it, the Van Gogh chair. I was just thinking about that today. You know, I was getting organized. Good thing you said that, Carol. I just wanted to, for people who are tuning in who are fairly new to us, we have this thing going on the Facebook group and in ribboncandyhooking.com, right? It's the store, the shop, but also the blog. That Barbara Phipps in Canada came up with the idea after our Design Like Van Gogh class. She came up with the idea of doing a challenge of just the chair. Because in part of the class, I drew this Van Gogh chair based obviously immediately on his drawing, right? Exactly like his drawing. I drew this chair, and the idea was what would you put on the chair or around the chair? What setting would you put the chair in? And that's what we keep talking about with these rug challenges, like this last one that came in. I showed this one last week. This one came in from Ruth Decker, absolutely beautiful, Indianapolis, Indiana. Absolutely beautiful chair with a little mask on it. So people have been doing for fun chairs in all manner of way, right? I'm working on an underwater scene the waves look like the starry night. So no tiled floor or anything. We're all doing it differently, but this PDF, this picture, is available on ribboncandyhooking.com for free. You can just download it if you want to transfer it in any size onto your backing. And I will be putting together, now that I'm getting a better feel for the size of show it can be, I'm choosing a venue that will work for us, that I can actually hang them up live, and we'll do a great live ribbon candy hooking show of these rugs hanging in a public place and people coming to see. Started my holiday jewelry wearing. And that'll be great. That'll be a great sort of energy boost, confidence boost for everybody. I'm really looking forward to that. Carol, I can't wait. And it's not too late to jump on if you want to get the chair going. Just let me know. I probably won't get it going until like January or whatever, just so I can, in my mind, put like kind of bookends on this event. And then we'll get thinking about our next challenge that has a physical exhibit that goes along with it. Suze, we could get as high as 80 today. Wow. Now that would be a bit scary. That would be a bit of a scary gift. That's teetering on the edge of insanity there. Linda, thumbs up. Thank you so much. It is a great day to create. I have so many things I want to talk to you about today. Cindy, good morning in warm and southern northern Illinois. Oh, I love how you chat to each other. Joy, great to see you. Hooking Christmas ornaments for your daughters. That is just the best, isn't it? And Dave, great to see you. Matthew says hello in snowy Sudbury, Ontario. I hope we're well too. I'm feeling quite well. remarkably well, freakishly well, eerily well. That might be that monster drink. Crystal, great to see you. Holy mackerel. Today is just flying. It really is. Lovely, lovely to catch you too. Catherine, good morning, good afternoon. And April, good morning. Beverly, you're unwrapping gifts. Oh, that is so nice. We are getting so festive, right? And happy Hanukkah to everybody celebrating Hanukkah. I keep forgetting to say, all my friends who celebrate Hanukkah, I have not even said happy Hanukkah yet. We have a beautiful piece of Hanukkah art that Jocelyn did because she went to the synagogue across the street for her preschool. And as a result, she came home with tons of beautiful Hanukkah gifts, menorahs. So we light a menorah at home and we do our Christmas. And it's just so funny, the fusion of all these different holidays. It just gives us more stuff to celebrate, right? More great ideas in our heads, too. Aileen, great to see you. I love that link you sent me. Thank you so much. And Doreen, great to see you. Marty, hello, back from COVID. You won. Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. Those were some scary pictures on Facebook, but I'm glad I sent the care emoji, which is nothing, is it? When you're going through something that scary. Congrats on that. I am so glad that you're home and that you're well. It's such a scary monster. I hate it when people minimalize how scary a thing it is. It is a truly scary thing that, yeah, we'll stop there because you were scared, I'm sure. Happy that you're back. Janice, good morning, waiting for the snow. It's so extreme. Oh, great. Everybody's checking in. Kimberly, you made it. Great. Good to see you. I don't see Heather here today. I just want to show you the project. In our group, I'm so naughty, and if she logs on, I've got to pay attention. In our Facebook group, there is an exchange. We do this exchange. We've done two or three of them. I think we're getting to the third. But it's like a 6-inch hooked or any kind of little rug made square, 6-inch by 6-inch. I always do mine a little bit bigger. But I did one, and I had Heather, who's a friend of mine. And I haven't seen her lately. She's been busy, but she lives like half an hour away. And I know from last year when she helped me decorate the studio, and we'll do that again this year, I'm sure, and paint and everything. I know she's a big holiday celebrator, and I picked her name. So I'm going to show you what I did because I've been hinting at it all this time. It's not the best. That is for sure. It is not the best. But I wanted to get going on a Prati project. So this is her square that I made her. This is this crazy Prati. It's got a lot of depth. Christmas tree, right? And this is what I really want to show you. Do you see that? I mean, what is wrong with me? So I pradied this, right? And I stretched it over a frame. It's terrible in the back. I've got to seal it. But I'm trying to seal it in a way that the battery pack can still be there so she can do some of this action. But I hooked the tree out of a pink sweater with a little turquoise stalk. And I did this crazy cake of a Prati with all these metallic things on it. And I hooked this garland. And then I put this battery pack into the back. That was technically the part that I almost lost my mind on because the battery thing wouldn't work. Do you know that little thing that lights up, these little strand of lights, takes 3 batteries? It sounds to me like the mini garland people are in cahoots with Duracell because that is just ridiculous. But she loves things that are over the top and blingy like that, and she loves the holidays. So I thought, let me see if I can do something that is truly a Prati cake with a tree inside that lights up. Crystal, it is fun. It was a great exercise, and it led to this whole Prati cracker thing. So I didn't get them up yesterday. I will get them up tomorrow. It was funny. I think it's right up her alley. I always do real traditional stuff with giveaways and stuff like that, but this one obviously is not. This one went on a bender. It was fun. But you know what this reminded me of that I want to tell you, and then we'll get into Agnes. Let me take one more sip of this. It was so easy to do. You know what this reminded me of? Hooking all this Prati, right? So I always like to show this section of it because it's like such depth, right? It's all these metallic colors that you Prati through. And yeah, there's a tree that's like lower down, hooked out of pink sweaters. But this part of it is just this sort of New Year's Eve chaotic bling, isn't it? Like the height, the chaos, the texture. So I had that finished up, and I'm really hoping she's going to stop by today or tomorrow because otherwise I've really got to send it. It's late. But I had that over there on the side, and I was talking to my therapist this morning, and he said something that was so interesting and smart that I want to share because it really, it got me going along the ideas of an immediate design. And he said I was asking him questions about how, like, when you're a creative person, you have a lot of chaos, you create a lot of chaos for yourself, how to bring it down to a baseline without losing your energy and the great dynamics that you feed off of when you're a very creative person, but also a bit chaotic, right? The chaos that it causes when you're very up and very down. And we were talking about that, and he said that it was his belief that every person is born with most of what life will be already built in, right? And part of that is dictated by like society, cultural norms, right? And there's only a small piece to that whole puzzle, that whole landscape that's actually your own, that you are free to evolve. And that's typically the creative part of ourselves. And he said, if you think of it in terms of most of your life is set forth for you. And that's true. When I thought about it, you're born, you start going to school before you know it. You're in school forever, almost all day, every day. You tend to play with kids who are also at your school or on your street. Everything is kind of dictated in a not, military kind of forced, crazy way, in a way that is just circumstance and happenstance, right? And then you get going with your job, and then you feel like you're going to work from the time that you're conscious until literally death. And for a lot of people, it is that way. And his point was that there's just a small piece of the puzzle that we can control, that we have the control out of. And with such a small piece in an otherwise very busy and demanding world, right, practical world that you must fit in if you're going to literally survive, there's such a small piece, and the way that that piece turns out is the part that's up to us. And he said that's the part that creative people are usually the most interested and focused on, because you want that part to be the very special piece in the otherwise kind of predestined landscape. And I thought that is so true. And it sounds like a depressing thought, but it's really not, right? It's just, it reminded me immediately of all of those paint by numbers that I used to find when I was collecting paint by numbers, and I kept a couple of them, where, because I had like 100 or 200 at one point, there were quite a few where people painted the whole paint by number except the number 13, right? So there was this whole totally articulated painting, all filled in, all colorful and perfect, and then one tiny irregular little white spot that said 13. And I still assume that's because so many people are superstitious and historically have been, that they wouldn't want to color the number 13. So I always like to find the ones that had that missing 13, but it reminded me of that missing piece. And it was very helpful that he said that to me. But it immediately made me want to think about doing a much larger Prati piece that's as chaotic as as Heather's piece, right? And somewhere in the chaos of this abstract piece, right? Because we've been looking at so many beautiful Prati abstracts. Somewhere in the chaos and height and static of this Prati piece, there is a small piece that, for example, you just hook a few loops. And you can't really tell that it's there because it's so small, but that represents the part of you that is your choice from the moment that you're born, the part of you that you can control and shape. I thought that would be such a cool idea, because I've been meaning to make a much larger Prati piece that's very static, and New Year's Eve, and gossamer fabrics and bling fabrics, along with tweeds and suiting fabrics. And I think I am going to put in a little area that's hooked, that's hardly visible. It's only there if you know that it's there, but super symbolic, right? Hello, Karen. Good morning. I'm just catching up on your comments. Holidays slowing you down. Thank you. Catherine, good to see you. Good afternoon in Georgia. Carol says, I always told my kids art is the one place that they're always the boss. That's true. That's true. Because they can't even be the boss at, for example, math, right? Like the Tom Lehrer song from the 60s, right? New Math, I think he called the song. But they can't even solve a mathematical equation the way that they normally and like organically their brain would solve it, because if they don't show the right math broken down, even if they get the right number every time, it's considered incorrect. Like, what a world! What a world! When you can't even be creative incorrect, like in a class at school, it's absolutely extreme, in my opinion. It's just extreme. But I agree, art is the place that you can bust it out art and hobbies. And I'm very lucky that the therapist that I got, it's just luck. It wasn't designed this way, but he was an art therapist first. And now he does more like psychology and psychiatry and stuff like that. But he's a perfect person for me to talk to because he gets so much of the way that I am built in without me having to, hemorrhage every story ever told. So I thought that was an interesting one and maybe a useful one in your life too. Sometimes thinking of things in terms of physical space for someone who loves physical space. And design, obviously covering every inch of everything with part of a design and an idea and a story. It's nice for me to think of problems too, and unfinished bits as part of that space, and like normalizing that, making that okay, something to celebrate in a really cool abstract piece. I think it's a great idea. So for the moment, let's return to, put this on my hooked coaster. I always love the gifts that I get, truly. Put that monster on there. So when we left off yesterday, we were talking about Agnes and her extraordinary work and her extraordinary rugs. And backstory, if you weren't with us the last couple of days, Agnes is born of German parents, right? An American living in, she's born in the U.S., but first generation. Very, very stoic looking woman. Very heavy on technical skills and doing things right. This is the era of Pearl McGowan for sure. And in a way, I'm going to say something that is not super appropriate, and I'm sure many of you will disagree with me. But in the way, I always say in the style of Pearl McGowan, because if we're honest about it, as much as I love Pearl McGowan and the work that she did with rug hooking. Hers was a brand, right? She was a single mother, and this is a powerful, inspirational story, and one of my favorite all-time stories, the story of her life and how she went from being, very at a loose end, very lots of disadvantages, single mom, to having this amazing, successful brand and business. And for some reason, people tend to crucify Claire Murray for having the exact same thing, right, of really successful brand, but celebrate Pearl McGowan. And I never have understood why one and not the other, because they're essentially the same thing. But this era of Pearl McGowan certifying teachers like Agnes in this certification process being, I'm teaching you how to do it this way. And the idea is that you impart these exact techniques, including the patterns, and the shading, the way that it's laid out, to the students so they can paint by number on these rugs, essentially with wool, is a brand. That's all part of a brand, right? She was great at doing this, and this is part of that school. But what they weren't doing as much of, at least in the middle 20th century, was saying to people, I will teach you how to rug hook, not so technically. I will teach you how to rug hook according to my taste or your taste or the way that we like to draw or the style of art that we like, in contrast, right? So that part is missing in this period of rug hooking, but we are still celebrating the hookers and the heroes of this period who saved this craft from complete obscurity to being a quite big brand that you're now finding rug hooking kits in stores, in gift shops, all over the place, right? It's very hard to ignore rug hooking in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s because of the Pearl McGowan brand and all of the teachers like Agnes that taught so many people, right? Oh, Kathleen, you're on. Good to see you. I'm catching up on the thread. I hope Heather didn't see that. Heather, if you're playing possum and you just saw that, I'm going to be so sad, but it will be my own fault, won't it? So we're going to look at her teaching career because she's teaching in the exact same style that she's hooking in. Now, I love this part of the story, but I've also heard so many stories, and we've told a lot of stories in Coffee Time, where people, in other books will say, like the book we did, the landscapes book, the new landscapes book, Molly Colgrove, right? She said that she went to 2 classes, early on trying to get into hooking, and she was completely thrown for a loop both times because she wasn't working in the way that the teacher was dictating, and she was not welcome. So we get that story as much as we get stories of happy students, right? So this is an interesting kind of seesaw that we're on, because we're hearing stories about people who are being taught in a very technical style and saying it didn't feel like me. I had to cut loose, I gave it up. And that's a really sad ending to that story. And at the same time, we're getting so many people who are saying, I love what we did in class. It kept me going. I have been a rug hooker my entire life. And that seems to be the school of people who Agnes is teaching, right? She's teaching in a very technical style, and as a result, she's teaching people who are very open to learning technically how to do this craft very, very, very finely. And as a result, she has a lot of happy students. And these are just beautiful pictures of a very happy time of ladies getting together, right? And Tara, what did Tara say? My mom used to say, you can't go back to your childhood, but you can go back to your art. Yeah, that's good, isn't it? That's so good. You could always pick your art up where that left off. Yeah, I struggle with the not being able to go back to your childhood, because you always hear these things, you can't go home, you can never go home. But I like to think somehow that you can, and that I will figure out a way to do that. Mom, by buying that house at 5 Windsor Drive, that is my all-time dream, is to buy the childhood home, even though it would be different. When I walked out of the house, I would still be on that same street of the trick-or-treating and the old dog and all of that stuff. It would be so nice. Different, but nice. So teaching, I'm doing this very carefully, because I have mixed feelings about this, especially the teaching part. So the following 11 photographs show the studio in action during one of the teaching days. Some of the comments about teaching. So this is Agnes speaking, because she has a true and sincere love for her students. I enjoy my students immensely. They are so interested and are learning because they really want to know the techniques involved. Most are very talented, and it's so satisfying to see the fine work that they do. I decided to teach hooking because I was asked to. I teach especially the process of shading, gradually blending all shades of one color onto a flower, fruit, or leaf. This is achieved by teaching the process of dyeing shades in several different pots, so the actual dyeing in the white enamel pots. Also, the cutting of wool is important so that it must go through the burlap with ease. It's also important, now isn't that funny? I never thought of that, because I always wondered, particularly back in the day, right, before the 80s, when people suddenly had a ton of money, back in the day, people are using these Bliss Fraser cutters, right? They are using what were then quite expensive cutters. And I always wondered, why are people bothering with that instead of a pair of scissors? And then, something like this makes me understand why, because in terms of teaching, teachers are saying it's very important to get your strips very thin and very even to be able to achieve this specific look, right? So that's the reason. That's the reason. But it's funny, because her granddaughter doesn't mention the cutter as one of the tools that you need, right? She just said the backing, the hook, a frame, and bent scissors, right? But really, Agnes is using as a very important tool her dye pots and her cutter as well. My mom says, yeah, we're talking about the old house where I mostly grew up in Rhode Island. It's always on our minds. They bought it for $52,000 in the 70s. The price is in the six figures now. Yeah, it's well into the six figures. It is, yeah. I think it's gone up about 10 times. It's definitely over $500,000 last time I looked. And it's not even a fancy house. It's just our house. That's the problem. Someone else is living in it, and they must go sooner or later, hopefully sooner. So she's talking about how important the cut is, also cutting the wool. It's also important to use the purest, most tightly woven wool so that the strips don't disintegrate when cut. Now that's true, and that continues to be a problem for everybody, because sometimes when you buy, particularly a beginner's kit, I'm not going to name any names of other companies, because 99% of the time everything is fine and it works, but often beginner kits will be equipped with, like, for example, braiding wool, which is much thinner and looser. It's for braiding, right? It's not to be picked apart by a hook. That's not what it's made for. But often beginners will get kits that have, you can see from the photographs on Facebook, very low quality wool in them that is really not the kind of wool that you want to be hooking. And if only they had been told, they might be more inclined to put it through the wash to try to full it a bit and have a better chance of hooking it, but instead they start hooking it. I've seen this so many times. It's such an eyesore on Facebook. They start hooking it, and all these strands come up, and they immediately think, what did I do wrong? I'm screwing this up. And it's because they've been given materials that are not right for what they're trying to do. And now that's one less person, one person who was attracted to the craft, who now is out the door, never to return again. That's super, super disheartening. That's why these online social media groups are so important, to encourage beginners to keep going, because it's usually something that somebody who's more experienced can look at and diagnose and say, your wool is just no good. They gave you garbage wool. What can one expect when you've got garbage supplies to start with, Which doesn't mean you need to have the finest wool. It just means you need to have something that's not going to atomize while you're working with it, right? Because that's super wind up frustrating. Agnes has been teaching classes for the past 30 years, until recently teaching 2-day-long classes and 1 evening class per week. That's a lot of students coming through, right? The day-long classes last from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Students bring their own lunches and coffee and tea are provided. The classes are not highly structured but fluid to meet the students' needs. Everyone brings their own projects and works at their own pace with individual guidance when the teacher is needed. That's a nice way to run a class, isn't it? With the Zoom classes, we can't really do that. We need a beginning, middle, and an end, so everybody knows what part they're starting on at the same time, and we can kind of get a baseline for what we're all doing. But when you're in person, there's certainly a lot more freedom, right, to be able to keep track. It sounds like a glorified hook. It sounds like a hook-in where everybody's deferring to one person, right, and that person is highly skilled and knowledgeable. But weirdly, in these situations, there's usually a mutiny of some sort, right? Because other people become skilled and experienced, and then they vie opinion-wise with the teacher. This dynamic happens a lot too. And then you get groups where people are falling away from it because there's personality problems, right? I guess that's partly queen bee syndrome or whatever, but in any case, at this time, and this is like the 80s, this worked. This worked great. And I would love to time travel. I would sit with Agnes. I would be her worst student, because I would really lament having to cut the strips so fine. And I would be unconsciously, I think, rebelling against the shading. But I would certainly give it a wholehearted try, because I love the end product. I really love, respect, and am completely dazzled with work that's as fine as this sort of style of rug hooking. I'm looking at the cabinets, though. Are you? I'm looking at these cabinets. The cabinets are just killing me. Gosh, I wonder how much it is to put cabinets in like that. All right, let's look at some more. I mean, these are just the sweetest photos. And remember, I said it the other day, but I like to think things in historical context, right? So, they're downstairs in the basement hooking, and maybe Agnes's husband is upstairs watching Moonlighting on TV. It's the second season. I mean, isn't that a weird thought? There's Bruce Willis and Sybil Shepherd, and they look so young. I mean, it just tells you exactly where we are time-wise here. And maybe you can think back, what were you doing in these days, right? 1986. Because this is what Agnes was doing with her buddies in this amazing basement. So then we move into the rugs. Dave says, decent materials, good lighting, comfortable chair and table make all the difference. Also clean your glasses. That is such a good one. I just ordered a ton more glasses, because it seems like I always use these peepers, right? I like the brand because they're kind of middle priced, about $20 each. But once you put them on when they're new, it's like, whoa, I can see. But they do get dirty, and even though I have the spray, they get irreversibly dirty. I don't mean scratched. It's like they're permanently dirty. And I realized I was doing this thing, particularly when I'm not feeling that well mentally, where I specifically, this is like so crazy, put fingerprints all over my glasses and then sit in the chair like this and space out for a while, when I'm feeling not that well. So that might be part of the reason why, creating a barrier between me and immediate reality. That might be why my glasses are not doing so well. But yes, clean glasses are helpful, at least, right? Those cabinets are incredible, right, Kathleen? Those are incredible. Custom made. So good. So then we look at the rugs, and she says, in her early attempts at rug hooking, the results were quite crude. I cut the wool pieces by hand using monk's cloth as a backing material, right? So she rejects monk's cloth and she goes using burlap only. Um, so these are all personal choices, right? Because I definitely choose monk's cloth over any other backing, usually, depending on what I'm hooking. Also like linen, also like burlap, also like rug warp. But each person is going to be different in what they choose. So she ends up choosing very fine cut in burlap. The rugs were hooked from the back instead of the front as they are today. Okay, so she's talking more about shuttle hooking, isn't she? If she's working from the back. She's definitely talking about shuttle hooking. There were no shading in those early days. The struggle was to cut all the material by hand and try to find the right textures and shades of wool. See, this is such an interesting quote. This is why this book is so great to have, because what she just said is like that's in a snow globe now, and the chance of snow is 100%. Because what she's saying is, number one, she wasn't hooking, she was shuttle hooking, which is punching, right? She was using this tool, that little wooden heart-shaped thing, right? And she's not getting a lot of detail, and it's going to be sort of limited colors if she's not dyeing her own colors. And these are the things that are frustrating her. So she is 100% going to be frustrated. The technique is not precise enough. The tool is not precise enough to get the level of detail and fineness that she considers a success, right? So this is interesting. That one quote from her just absolutely articulated her philosophy, didn't it? I mean, really. Interesting, because again, this is in the timeline of rug hooking where we haven't fleshed out so many of the details. And we're not even considering this era of rug making as an era. We're considering it as the right way, right? This kind of rug making that Agnes is doing is not dovetailing in with the Hutchinson style rugs and folk art rugs. No, those rugs are considered crude and passé. This is the only way at this moment in time. So it's interesting to catch these quotes because it gives a shape to the philosophy of rug hooking at that time. The above quote from Agnes Vermuth indicates how much her rugs have grown and evolved in the last 40 years. That also is very telling because having your rugs be finely shaded is not necessarily better than the cruder rugs. It's a different style. It's parallel. It's apples and oranges. It's not better. It's not an evolution, right? It's parallel. One of the first rugs she made was room size, 10 by 10, geometric with tans, browns, oranges. Each strip was cut by hand. For many reasons, it graced her husband's optometry office and later her grandson's bedrooms. So the optometry bought all those amazing built-in cabinets and the rugs because she had people over almost every day of the week. And where it is still in use today and showing little signs of wear. The stripes of wool were a little wider and there was no shading or detail on this early rug, but it was quite attractive and very durable. The rug was just more graphic, wasn't it? It was more in the style of an older rug. Kathleen says, Agnes kind of looks like Margaret Hamilton. We're going to get more pictures of her so we can look again. That's funny. The following photographs show just a sampling, because remember, she did hundreds of rugs, a sampling of how many rugs she's made. Not shown in chronological order, but grouped by subject matter. The rugs show a wide variety and diversity of design and indicate that hooked rugs like tapestries are suited to highly detailed subjects. So these rugs show absolutely a wide diversity of design, different sources of inspiration, but they are showing one style. So again, let's just be clear about that, particularly if you're a beginner. So I think we looked at this one already. This is the blue willow that was made from a serving tray that she owned. She absolutely loved. And then we looked at this one briefly. This is the one that she designed herself by studying fruits and creating this composition around the border. Remember, her daughter Eleanor was an artist, so she could help her with the design part of these rugs. Now that's a close-up of blue willow, very detailed, and a close-up of harvest. And let's see, I want to run through the gallery. Now, this is a part that's called the Orientals, right? And we tend to not use that word anymore, nor should we. But these are Oriental rugs, right? That encompass all manner of Eastern style rug. So this looks like a one-sided prayer rug. It is called Oriental Prayer Rug. Absolutely beautiful. That's another beauty, huh? What's that one called? Khazar Oriental. Sorry. Very asymmetrical, right? I mean, at first glance it is symmetrical, but it's very asymmetrical, truly. And then nice close-up. And remember her squeegee hat pin technique for transferring a pattern. This is an obscene amount of detail, which is a testament to how successful that Frost's Oriental. So this had to be a commercial pattern. Unless she copied it, which is possible, because that was not such a big deal in these days. That's very symmetrical. That's very beautiful, isn't it? It's very different. And these are geometrics. So it says somewhere in this book that her loves really were florals and geometrics. This is a super arabesque type. What is that called? Filigree. Arabesque type composition. Just a repeat, right? Multiples are always successful. Just a great repeat. Dover Designs. I always talk about Dover Designs, the book publisher, because there's so many copyright books they put out there. And I know that they do books on just arabesque, Romanesque, romantic type designs, right? You could just pull one like this, blow it up at Staples, and repeat it. And you've got this. And this is more of like the log cabin, right? The partial log cabin. So this would be the kind that, you know, is considered not shaded and more primitive. But really, this is how it is meant to be, isn't it? Geometric, what does she call that one? Geometric square. And then this one. Absolutely love this one. New England shell. Well, that's why I love it. It's almost like an op art piece, isn't it? But I love it's cropped in an odd way because she put those sort of mustard golden triangles at the bottom and at the top. But the ones at the bottom seem somehow darker and heavier. It's almost like a close-up of a 1980s sofa, right? Because they were almost all scallop, faux upholstery, tapestry kind of thing. And now these are two examples of her mixing her two favorite things, which is geometry and floral. And this is the one I used for the thumbnail yesterday. Blossom Time. Now, I'm wondering whether any of these are her students' rugs or if these are all her rugs. And these are just the straight out florals. Now, this one really is super charming. I'm not a big one for this style, but the realism in the border is extraordinary. It's like it looks like a print. I would be hard pressed. I would think it was impossible personally to not put text or something in the center, because that is the perfect Victorian frame for something else in my mind. But this, it's personal taste, isn't it? Absolutely personal taste. Rosemary, after the song, I guess, in the movie. And then some real close-ups. I got to see what you're talking about. I'm feeling left out. Wait a minute. Let me just catch up for a second. Tara says, Crystal, in '86, I had to rush my 3-year-old to the emergency because she got a Lego stuck in her ear. That is so funny. Oh, Crystal, you said pretty sure I was still putting Legos up my nose in '86. That's so funny. We had a similar thing at like a church party. My girlfriend Gail, sorry Gail, put a piece of Play-Doh up her nose and it wouldn't come back out. Luckily, her dad was an ear, nose, and throat doctor, so Dave got it out. But man, then she went on to put more Play-Doh in her ear, like at a later date. So it was a case of definitely not learning. But she was the same friend who, after we watched Mary Poppins, we went up on top of her roof with umbrellas. And I know you know this, Mom. I didn't jump. She did jump, and she really hurt herself. Luckily, it's not funny. Luckily, her dad is a doctor. But obviously, the umbrella collapsed. But at the time, we thought it was a fantastic idea. I don't think that was '86, because that would make me 14. So would make me really have some deeper problems than we already know about. So more of her little florals. I don't mean little. That sounded patronizing. These are smaller rugs. for her. I mean, 30 something is large, but for her, these are definitely on the smaller side. Right. Lots of realism. That one's more of a black and white one, that tall one in the vase. She does a lot of the monochromatic. Think back to that last picture in the book, the Wuthering Heights, remember? That looks like a woodcut. I'll show that at the end if you hadn't seen that earlier episode. So let me see what all this text is here. That might be something. Okay, so Geneva, where Agnes, okay, this is Geneva, I think Illinois, right? Where Agnes lives, is predominantly Swedish. So the design and color for the above rug may have come from the dishes and woodwork seen locally. We're going to look at that one again. The porcelain-like effect of the, okay, so first let's look at this one. This one is called Sweden. And that was a nice bit of text that she gave us there because I'm trying to get rid of that glare. There we go, Sweden. You know, and that, I have to say, I brushed over this one, but this is incredibly great. That's super unusual. It almost looks like it's going to be a cornucopia design with like rose hips or something, but it's really not. Again, this is super sort of evocative of 1980s style textile design, because I saw plenty of couches that had this kind of upholstery design, including this stuff. I mean, you remember that well, right? But yeah, it looks a little bit like toe painting, right? It looks a little Scandinavian / Swedish. So that fits as a theory. That's really smart. And the limited kind of color palette, the kind of Delft blue, the clay rose color, and the spice brown, right? Definitely spice brown. And then the next one, As You Like It. The porcelain-like effect of the flowers and As You Like It is achieved by shading in blues, greens, and basically a black and white rug. Interesting. Okay, so this one, it's going to be hard to see, even though it's in color. She's saying it's basically a black and white rug, but she shaded in a little bit of blue and green. I'm not picking up on it, but I'm assuming because it's written down that it is true, and that if we were looking at this rug in person, we would be picking up on that. Oh, it looks like she signs her rugs Agnes. Look over here. What does that say, 58? Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Isn't that beautiful? That really is so beautiful. And then the last one on this page, Timmy, named for one of her grandsons, uses a scroll-like border slightly darker than the background to achieve this antique-looking rug, well suited for many handsome antiques, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, she definitely signs her rugs Agnes. This is good to know, because if someone finds an Agnes, we all need to know about it. I really need to know about it. You know, that really is, doesn't that look like a beautiful Victorian calling card? That kind of parchment cutout, like a die cut, right? Like as they would do, set inside a border that's just a little bit darker. That really is so smart. Really, pages coming out of these books faster than I can read them to you. So let's look at a couple. It's late. Let's see. Oh, I don't want to rush this. So you know what I'll do? This is no, I can't. Can I? I was just going to say tomorrow, I'm not planning to run a cocktail time. I'm so sorry. But tomorrow is the night that I'm going to go to my mom's with my sister and get a Christmas tree. We're going to put the Christmas tree up, the three girls. So I was going to run a show. I was going to squeeze one in, but I think it'll create stress if we're still fooling around with the tree and the tree stand, you know. So I'm not going to run a show tomorrow. So I was thinking, can I run a show during the day tomorrow? But I'm leaving at noon. So why don't I say, you know what, I'm gonna sneak in an episode tomorrow to make up for tomorrow night, just to complete this book, because I just want to show you the rest of the catalog of her work that's in this book, because most people will not be so lucky as to be able to get a copy of this book, and it is a great record of rug hooking, right, up to 1986. This is it. So there's a lot more to see. So why don't we say, you know, let's do it. Let's do it. I'm going to be careful to get on at 11, and I won't fool around too much, because I'll have to be out of here by like 11:40 for sure. So let's run it tomorrow. Let's do coffee time tomorrow at I'm sorry, noon. Oh, we run it at noon. I'm going to run it at 11 tomorrow. I'm going to run coffee time at 11. Sorry, because I'm picking my sister up at noon to go and get the tree. So I'm going to run coffee time, if you're able to, at 11 Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. I will post it in the group. If you are able to log on, we will conclude really this masterpiece. This is like somebody's artistic, creative artist portfolio, the Hooked Rugs of Agnes Vermuth. So I will be on at 11 a.m., an hour early tomorrow to do that, to finish this book together, in place of a Cocktail Time episode tomorrow night. I'm sorry about that. 'Tis the season, and I am really getting there with busyness and craziness and just getting together. So hopefully I will see you at 11 tomorrow if you are able to make it that early. And in the meantime, have a great day, everybody. If I don't see you tomorrow, have a great weekend. I am looking forward to a high energy week next week. And yeah, we'll figure it all out. But you can find me at ribboncandyhooking.com and on the Facebook group, Rug Hooking and Punch Needle Club. And you can always email me at ribboncandyhooking@gmail.com. And remember that Klimt class is up to sign up for that. And I swear to you, today is the day that I'm putting those crackers up. So I can start mailing crackers tomorrow with Proddy tools and as many Proddy pieces as I can fit in there with your paper crown and your fortune telling fish. I'm going to put them up for $15 plus shipping. I think that's a good price. I want to keep them as low as I can, and I want as many people to start fooling around with Proddy as possible. So let's do that. All right. Oh, Cindy says I live in the town next to Geneva. It's a very Swedish area. So Cindy, you know what? Do you have time to hit every antique store in your area and see if any of Agnes's rugs are out there? Because you live in Agnes territory, and I wonder, with hundreds of rugs and also hundreds of rugs made by our students, there should be thousands of rugs out there that are either Agnes's own or in the style of. This could be exciting, right? Oh, we should just plan a trip on the airplane to go there to Geneva and just hit every. You know what? Let's talk about this in the new year. Taking trips to places where there were teachers like Agnes who were like the center of a hornet's nest of hookers. And then just take all these crazy day trips, but then we're going to be fighting over rugs, aren't we? We might not love all the rugs, just to be able to document and hunt. Wouldn't that be wonderful as like a field trip for us and a vacation with nice meals out? I don't mean fancy ones. I mean just food out. And motels, keeping it cheap. Could that be an idea? That sounds amazing to me right now. Anyway, my heart's beating real fast all of a sudden. I love that idea. I will see you all hopefully tomorrow at 11 Eastern Standard Time in the morning, an hour early at Ribbon Candy Hooking. Take care. Have a great afternoon, everybody.